Hello everyone, and welcome to our Growing Sustainable Business webinar series session today on real-time management reporting and information. I'm Hazel Tucker, an accountancy partner at Bishop Fleming, and we hope this session will provide you with some valuable insights for you and your business. We will begin the session with Matt Grieveson, who will be delving into management reporting and will provide some options on how you can enhance your management information. We are then delighted to be then joined by our client, Mitesh Kunvarji from Crownwood Healthcare, for a conversation with John Speak to discuss his business and the positive impact that management reporting has had with our advisory relationship. We will then wrap up with a Q&A session, and we encourage you to raise any questions as and when they arise, and we will publish and discuss these at the end of the presentations. To do this, click on the Q&A at the top of the banner and post your question. So without further ado, I will now hand you over to Matt Grieveson.
Hello, my name's Matt Grieveson and I'm an accountancy manager in our Plymouth office. I'm going to be talking through what management information is, why it's important for your business, and some tools to improve and enhance your management reporting. So firstly, I'm just going to cover what is management reporting and information. I'm going to try not to teach you all to suck eggs because obviously you all know what it is, but it's any information relating to the activity of the business that drives key decisions made by the business's management teams. What we mean by business activity is it could be people, customers, suppliers, projects, sales. It could relate to different locations, different teams within that business. And we're incorporating the commercial operations alongside the financials to inform and support those decision makers, to enable them to plan for the future, to drive the growth and the efficiencies of the business. So why is management information important? I've broken it down into a few different areas here, but ultimately, management information is important because it's what's allowing the stakeholders of the business to understand the performance and to understand their position within the market. This might be used to help identify trends, identify potential issues, whether that's underperformance, whether that's overspends. It could be all to do with monitoring performance around some objectives that the company may have, and also looking at the industry averages, maybe looking at their competitors, kind of reviewing that kind of information. The management information could be used to evaluate projects and initiatives, whether that's financial or non-financial. For example, you may have a target for the company or for the business to raise the brand, or to look at customer satisfaction. Obviously, that's something that is going to be non-financial, but it is a performance driver for the business. We can also use management information to allocate available resources and effectively within the business to ensure that the goals of the businesses are met. So ultimately what we're doing is we're trying to get information to enable decisions, which is then supported and backed by the financial data. Management information may be mandatory for some businesses if they have investments from banks or other private equity backing. There may be some covenants that are like conditions of the loans that may be made by the lender that must be followed then by the borrower. So, for example, it might be that you need to maintain a certain interest cover to ensure that you can, cover the debt. It may be that they've kind of restricted the level of dividends that may be able to be issued from the company. These covenants are then, they're reportable and they are expected to be reported on by the investor. So, we would then want to include those KPIs within our management information pack to ensure that we're not falling foul of those covenances. The whole reason for that is because obviously the lenders want to have more control over the investment. They want to ensure that their investment is going to be repaid. They want to ensure that the company is planning to make those future repayments. And then, looking forwards, management information is important to help support the long and short-term plans of the business. So, we're meant to be, we're looking at all sort of historical financial information normally with management accounts and with year-end statutory accounts. But then actually, are we looking at forward budgets, forward-looking projections? Are they then in place to then support those plans and those goals? It may be that that's a more detailed 6 to 12 month kind of projection, and then longer term we're maybe looking at kind of a 1 to 5 year projection that may be done on a kind of a model basis, looking at increasing revenue by a set percentage or something like that to kind of build that out longer term. So that's why why the management information is going to be important for all businesses. So I'm just going to cover briefly what we think sort of good management information is going to look like. So I've kind of broken those down into 4 key areas. So we've got relevant. So we want the information that's included within the management packs, whether that's management accounts or other summary details, to be relevant to the business. It should be relevant to the sector that you're in. It should also be relevant to the management style as well. So if you've got a management team that are very detail orientated, then your management pack would obviously be lent towards that. It needs to be relevant to the sector, as I've said. So for example, if you're working in professional services like we are, we would monitor things like work in progress, employee utilization, debt recovery, those kind of things. Whereas that's not going to be relevant at all to someone that's in manufacturing or in retail. Timely. So obviously we've got in here that the reports need to be timely. This means they need to be produced to a set timeline. It needs to be produced shortly after a period end, so that you can actually make those business decisions based on information that's relevant but also timely. And then what are your things that may be stopping you from actually producing those reports on a timely basis? So are there limitations with the integrations of your systems? Are there manual data entry that you're still doing that's then stopping you from being able to produce these reports timely? Accurate. So obviously the financial information needs to come from reliable sources. It needs to be accurate. One of the things that we kind of try and push is that if systems can talk to each other and they can be integrated, then obviously the accuracy of the data that's flowing from one system into another is going to be a lot greater. So are there any APIs that we can be making use of? Is there anything there that we can do around accuracy? And then the last point on there is digestible. So what we mean by this is just making sure that the reports are clear, concise. They show the correct, efficient analysis in a way that's easily digestible to the stakeholders. One of the things that we try and do is make sure that the important bits of information are at the front of the reports in an easy to understand way. This is usually done by what's called an executive summary, which just summarizes the details that are covered in the management pack. One of the things just to note here is that every business is going to be producing management information in a different way, and the management packs that you're producing may vary month on month, quarter on quarter, depending on what's important to you at that specific period. So try to almost go away from just following the same format each month or each quarter. It might be that the same things are included, but actually what's important and what needs to be brought to the forefront should be highlighted. I'm just going to give a few examples of ways in which you can make the information digestible. So I've just got on the screen here a couple of examples of some graphics that can be used. This is looking at financial information, but also bringing in potentially some non-financial information. So I've just got on the screen there debt to equity ratio, a bit of liquidity, man days, which is very specific to one of our clients, billable hours, so that's going back to our kind of, professional services businesses, and, things like website traffic, which, is something that we can track quite easily now using all the data analytics that are available. So we just kind of think about ways that you can bring in information that may not be currently in your management information packs. Most of the things that are going to be covered in your management packs are going to be, historical financial data, whether that's a profit and loss, balance sheet, cash flow. But as I said, looking forward, see if we can bring in some detailed budgets, some longer term financial models. And it might be that you don't need to bring in the whole information. It may just be some of the key bits there, your turnover, cost of sales, your admin expenses. You don't need to bring down through a full list of everything, but that might be quite important to include in a management pack. And then the only other thing that I'm just going to finish on is don't just try and think about the financial information. Let's try and think about all the business operations, what things have happened in the business over the past month, over the past quarter, that are critical to understanding what the financials look like. So think about all business operations. Okay, so I'm just going to pass on to John now, who's going to talk through a little Q&A session with one of his clients. So over to you, John.
Thanks, Matt, and good morning, everyone. So rather than me providing anecdotal stories of how relevant and timely information has been used to inform management when making key decisions or to highlight areas of a business that require attention, we sort of thought we'd plan this slightly differently. So we thought we'd be quite useful if we invited one of our clients to join us on this webinar for them to offer their insight from their sort of client and business perspective. Hopefully that provides you with an impartial view on how quality information has been beneficial to them in improving the performance of their business and informing them when they need to make any key decisions. So we're joined this morning by Mitesh, who owns and runs a series of care homes in the Southeast. And to provide a bit more context, we've been working with Mitesh for a number of years now, and throughout this time, the business has seen a lot of change, I think it's fair to say, in terms of growth, funding, and sort of various other sort of strategic decisions that the business has taken. So Mitesh, welcome. Thank you for taking the time to join us this morning.
No problem, John.
I think that's probably my intro there is probably a good segue into, asking the first question then. So I guess, can you just tell us a bit about the sort of management information and reporting that we produce for you, and maybe just give us an insight into how that has changed and evolved as the business has grown and as it has changed itself. So can you just give us a bit of an update on what that looks like?
Yeah, sure, John, sure. So, I mean, look, as John said, Bishop Fleming, started working with me back in 2016 when I bought my first home. And at that point in time, it was one home, we had a bank involved, and the management reporting they required was relatively simplistic. But at the time, we put something together and we used it. It was fine. When we bought some more homes in 2022, the level of complexity that the bank required in terms of the management reporting increased, and Bishop Fleming rose to that, and we created a management pack of information to provide to the bank on a quarterly basis. And that's what we're doing. And that management pack has been created taking into account demonstration that we're complying with the covenants we have to comply with under the financing, and to demonstrate compliance with certain KPIs that the bank wanted to see. In addition to that, we also took the opportunity to build in other KPIs which I wanted to see how we're performing against every quarter. And that's been a really, really helpful tool every quarter to look at, to see how we are coming along, not only against the bank KPIs, which in themselves are useful to look at, but some other sort of KPIs that I'm interested in looking at on a quarterly basis. I would say Bishop Fleming have been fantastic in providing that information in a timely basis. We sit down, we take the time out to look at those numbers, discuss them, see if any pinch points would be really, really helpful. I would say Bishop Fleming also, it's not just about providing the management information, there's other areas where they provide support. I mean, whether it be with our bookkeeping in the background, or Zero, where I've got queries, whether it be about personal advice or to ad hoc business advice around trying to optimize tax efficiency, or thinking about different ways in which we look at profit extraction and planning. That's always been really, really helpful. And just about discussions around different business ideas I might have going forward, or different mechanisms we might use. You know, they've been fantastic, and they've been helpful and a worthwhile sort of partner with me for many years. And now, you know, I'm currently at the stage of maybe potentially looking to sell one or two of my homes, so I can sort of grow in a slightly different direction strategically. And again, they've been fundamental in having discussions with me around those next steps.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. That's really useful. And I think that you touched upon, you know, the bank have required certain KPIs and covenants that we've got to comply with. So, you know, it was good that when we had that initial discussion, you talked about, look, actually, whilst the bank do want these KPIs, actually what I find more important to aid me in running my business is, can we look at widening that and looking at some of the stuff that the bank aren't requesting? So I guess, have there been any instances then where we've provided information or certain KPIs that you've looked at? So when we've provided the management accounts to you, have you looked and been able to give examples, maybe of examples where you've spotted something that you've had to go and look into further? Have you got any examples of that the information would be useful for?
Yeah, absolutely, John. I mean, look, I think why it's been really helpful, and I found it particularly helpful in the last few years when we've grown, is especially as you grow and you are busier and you're stretched more in dealing with more different homes, you don't always stop and look at some of the costs that are accruing in the homes. I mean, prime examples of this, as we were working on the quarterly throughout 2023, we realised the staffing costs are too high in one or two of the homes, or we realised agency was more than it should have been in one or two of the homes. And as you month on month, as you're going through it and you're busy and you're just paying things, your income's coming, as long as things are okay and you've got enough cash at the end of the day, you don't necessarily sit and focus on those points, and you think, oh, it's okay. But actually at the quarter, when you sit and look at it, you think, well, hold on a second, looking at the metrics and looking at the KPIs, there's far too much being spent on that. Well, why is that happening? And then you take that time to drill down and understand, well, maybe the managers aren't working on the rotas as they should be, or they're relying on agency too heavily. They're not thinking outside the box in terms of staffing. And that, you know, those were really helpful areas that we could look at coming out of the quarterly that really helped us then get the staffing levels to where they should be. It was very different when you had one home. When you start growing, that's when I think you need that level of detail and sophistication in your financial reporting, so you can look at it on a wide scale and then take action. So I found that really helpful.
Good, and I think you probably hit the nail on the head. Actually, I think it's probably one of the points that we discuss with clients all the time, is that, you know, as the business grows, the reporting requirements will change, and it's easy to fall into a bit of a rut of just preparing the same thing every time. You know, go from one home to 3 homes to 10 homes, different requirements. And I think that as business owners need to be aware of the different information that they need and the change in the reporting requirements that they're going to need to produce in terms of being able to make those decisions quickly on a timely basis. So it's good to hear that you've been able to use it, and I know that we've worked with you to amend bits and pieces throughout the process. So I guess just a follow-on question, Mitesh, then I guess if you
John,
I
just want to jump in and add as well. I also think, and what we found last year, and I personally found really it was really an interesting point that the bank raised as well, is, you know, and I have no qualms in saying this, you know, there were difficulties last year. You know, bought the businesses, we've improved them, we've worked really hard to do so. But at that time, when, you know, you've got a new lender on board, they gained confidence and comfort in the level of financial reporting we were doing for them every quarter. You know, that we weren't hiding away for any issues. These are the issues. Here they all are. Here's how we're going to work and solve them. And I think, John, you'll agree that, you know, the lender was very happy and had a lot of time and gained confidence in me and a business owner and in the team I've chosen to work with me and produce the financials, because of that level of sophistication we were providing. You know, so it helps it builds confidence in those that are lending to you. So I found that a really useful aspect of having that management information available as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that whole, no, that's fine. I think that whole process, they definitely engaged with it. And I think that the fact that you were, you know, actively, you know, expanding the management information pack for your own benefit gave them comfort that you were all over it and you were trying to take an interest in it and really understand the business, the nuts and bolts of the business. So I guess one of the following questions I was just going to ask was, if you weren't receiving or producing any of these management accounts, how do you think you would be making the decisions?
Well, it's on gut feeling, isn't it? Like I say, month on month, you sort of take a gut feeling and you sort of assess, is that sort of be okay? Oh yeah, it's sort of all right. There's not that sophisticated approach or rationale. You're sort of rolling with it effectively, you know. So I don't think it's as thought through necessarily in that way. I don't think there are timely decisions either, and I think that probably costs, because you delay things, or you think, oh, it's okay, let it carry on. Oh, it's okay this month, let it carry on, and you get caught up with the day-to-day running of the businesses as well. And also you're reactive as well, I think, sometimes, rather than being able to forward plan. So yeah, I think that probably would affect profitability as a result. So
yeah, I think it's interesting that you say that, because I know that there are a number of clients that come to us and various people that we speak to, and they share the same view that they're just doing it on gut feel, and they know their businesses. A lot of people know the businesses inside out. But I think it's, as you say, when you get into the sort of the usual running of the business, and life just gets in the way, and you're maybe not on top of all the individual cost items, and maybe decisions aren't made quickly enough because you're not aware of it until you do run out of cash, or until an issue does arise. So that's interesting to hear, and I think that supports our rationale for saying that why we think that management information is really important. So I think I'm not wishing I could talk to you for ages, Mitesh. So not wishing to just completely hijack this webinar, but I think that's useful. I think we've had some questions in, so I think it might be if I hand back to Hazel and we'll just do a Q&A. So Mitesh, a big thank you to you. There might be some questions coming through to you, I don't know, but if you wouldn't mind just staying on the line to answer anything, and I'll hand back to Hazel for the Q&A.
Sure.
Thanks, John. Yeah, that was really, really insightful. We have got a number of questions, so I am going to start by kind of publishing the first one for you, John, which is, why do banks always want businesses to be preparing regular management accounts?
Okay, so yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I guess there's probably two parts to that question. The first one is for their own benefit. So they are going to want to make sure that the company is able to make the repayments against the financing that they've taken on. So I guess that's the first point, is that they just they want to be able to keep an eye on exactly how the financials are looking for the company, and in most cases they will require bank covenants, so certain covenants about maybe some EBITDA levels, debt service cover. Quite often you'll see those sort of metrics being requested as part of that pack. So that's their way of keeping an eye on and making sure that if they're within that metric, they're probably fairly comfortable. I guess the issue is if they fall below those covenants, that's the flag to the bank to maybe they might need to speak to their risk department and think about measures of getting involved. But I think secondly, I think the other point is, actually, if a business produces management information, it gives them a level of comfort that the businesses are taking ownership of owning the numbers, owning the business and its performance. So I think where we find that banks are a lot more relaxed is where they see that clients have already got management information pack being produced, and that they're already over their numbers, and they're already monitoring those key things that are important for that business. So I think those are probably the two key points. Hazel.
Thank you. The next question is for Matt, and the question is regarding what things are you currently seeing from your clients' management information reports?
Yeah, fine. So I guess at the minute we're seeing quite a varied mix of management reports. Probably a lot of them are very basic, where they're usually just looking at a simple profit and loss and a balance sheet, possibly just taken straight from their accounting software. Not a lot of written commentary around the support for the financial data, for understanding what those commercial operations are kind of doing. And then in terms of accuracy of data, we're probably, if they're just running a P&L and a balance sheet straight out of the accounting system, they may not be thinking about kind of like month-end journals, quarter-end journals around, stock, wages, your fixed asset register maintenance, like depreciation, things like that. Very rarely are we seeing sort of like corporation tax provisions in management information. And again, that might be, because the preparers may not be comfortable with putting a provision in, or it might just be something that's not considered. And then I guess the other thing is we spoke a lot about KPIs, so it's almost what are your business? We're not seeing it. So what are the key performance indicators of your company? And actually, they should be the forefront of any of those reports. They should be the things that you're tracking. They should be the things where you're monitoring trends and you're understanding those KPIs alongside the financial data. So yeah, it's a bit of a mixed bag at the minute, but a lot of it seems to be just coming directly out of accounting softwares.
Thanks, Matt. John, another question for you. Do we need to build a full management reporting pack each month or quarter?
Yeah, a good question. I think the answer is no, but with a caveat, and I think that it depends. So each business needs to be looked at individually. Each business is different. It's got its own risks. It's got its own issues. It's got its own financial piece of information that needs to monitor. So, and it will depend on the requirements. If you've got a requirement from a bank, and they're requesting it, then you won't have a choice. But ultimately, it's down to the business to make sure that they are producing a management information pack that gives them all of the information that they need in order to be able to make the decisions that they need to make. So for some businesses, that might be a P&L and a bit of variance analysis, and maybe a couple of charts on certain non-financial KPIs. That might be sufficient. For others, where they've got, you take Mitesh as an example. They've got multiple homes, so he's going to want to understand how each home is performing, and in doing so, there are financial and non-financial performance indicators that he's going to want to monitor. So that is probably, and it is, a much wider pack in terms of looking at the, how are each individual home doing, and how is the group doing as a whole, and how are the non-financial piece of information built into that. So I don't think you have to do it a full pack every month, every quarter, but it certainly needs to be tailored to the individual entity. And as an example, we can offer to help any company that wants to think about what theirs should look like. We can help guide clients through that process.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, John. I have a question for Mitesh, actually. Mitesh, why did you decide to outsource the management accounts to Bishop Fleming rather than hiring someone internally?
Hi, good question. So it is something I thought about, and we thought about, but I think, particularly for a business of my size, it's not, I'm growing, but I'm not a massive scale yet. And I think, as I touched on, I have a whole host of advice and support that comes from Bishop Fleming. I can talk to a partner, I can talk to a senior manager person, I can talk to the person who's dealing with sort of the day-to-day accounting things, I can talk to the person that helps me with the zero in the background. I don't think I'm going to get that from a single hire that I might make into my business to try and help with the sort of finance function, if you will. It's not like I'd recruit someone at a higher level. It will be a lower level, so they wouldn't be able to give me that breadth of advice and support that I use Bishop Fleming for. And also, to be honest, I've worked with Bishop Fleming for a number of years now. I've got a strong working relationship with everyone there, and they sort of know my businesses well. They know our personal situation well, and it sort of intertwines, right? I also get financial advice, personal financial advice from financial sort of advice from Bishop Fleming. So, as we grow more, that may develop, but I'd still have Bishop Fleming involved. So yeah.
Well, thanks, Mitesh. And finally, I have one more question that I'm going to publish, and that's for Matt. Matt, what platforms are available for producing these reports electronically?
Yes. Okay. So, Yeah, I guess just to start, we are seeing clients obviously moving away from Excel in terms of what they're kind of using to produce their management information packs. And like I'm saying, we're trying to get those systems integrated if we can with the accounting systems. So there's lots of different things on the marketplace. Some may be better suited for what accounting system you're using, but there's different things like Fathom, Sift, Join, which is all to do with multi-entity reporting, Spotlight. But some things to think about when you're going out and looking for these systems is check what accounting system you're on. Obviously, they need to be integrated seamlessly with what you're currently using. And then also think about what you want your output to look like. So, if you want to have a report that's got lots of graphics, lots of trends, that kind of thing, then make sure that these systems do have that. If you're more of a details person and you want to see the detail, then make sure that can also be built into these packs. And also think about whether budgets and forecasts can be included within that, because it might be that a lot of people again are doing budgets and forecasts in Excel, which is fine. You can update those year on year. But if you're kind of then building those into the same reporting system that you're producing your management information in, can you then include those budgets and forecasts as part of your regular MI packs? So again, that might be something that pushes your decision around which system to use. And then also just check that the price point is obviously right. So make sure it's not too expensive for what you need to produce. Is the value added worth it for the cost of the investment? And then the last thing just to kind of mention on that is just do you have the right in-house experience to be kind of implementing these systems, designing the reports, all of that kind of stuff? Is the system going to be capable of what you want on the export side? And again, if you're having these kind of questions and whatnot, please do get in touch, because we can help steer you down the path to the correct reporting system.
Thanks, Matt. That's some really helpful advice there. I think we've just about made it into half an hour, 30 minutes, slight overrun, but it just leaves me now to close off with a huge thank you, particularly to Mitesh from Crownwood Healthcare for his engaging and insightful conversation, and also to Matt and John. We would love you to get in touch if you have any questions or would like any support going forward. So we've got our contact details on the screen, which includes the Q codes to our LinkedIn profiles if you would like to contact us. That just leaves me to say thank you, everyone, for joining the session today, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.